India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi visit the U.S. In a state visit, which is a completely different type of visit, which is reserved for close allies of the U.S. This was a red carpet visit. He's been to the U.S. 5 times since 2014, since he became Prime Minister. But this visit is different. It was invited by the U.S. government to the Prime Minister, and there is a lot for the U.S. to gain with being closer to India, and there is a lot for India to gain for being closer to the U.S., be it perhaps not in a direct interest in each other, rather than both of them benefit from each other, which is most relationship happened because of that.
Yeah.
India sees its improving stature as the 5th largest economy in the world, and allying with the U.S. can be very helpful. The U.S. sees India as a counterweight to China, and obviously they're concerned about the war in Europe. They can play a very positive role. How does that impact immigration is the discussion of today's topic of Modi's visit to the U.S. I'm Sam Shihab with the law firm Sam Shihab and Associate. With me,
I'm Brian Burke, and I think we have a lot to talk about, and a somewhat unusual topic for us, but a fun one, I think.
I think so too, when we return. So this is a topic that we want contribution from our listeners. If you have a comment, just throw it in there and we'll pick it up as we make our presentation, because this is really about, would the visit of the world's largest economy's Prime Minister to the U.S. help in the challenges that we have here in the U.S.?
Well, world's largest economy is...
world's largest democracy.
Yes, there you go. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
To the U.S. Help in the significant backlog of India's immigration to the U.S.
Yeah, I mean, we had, in terms of, people, movement of people, immigration, there's clearly a big, giant relationship between India and the United States. We talk about it every day, not every Monday here in this venue. What's the estimation number of H-1B workers in the United States?
Over 600,000.
And the vast majority of those, we know that they come from India. And, this is the visit of a foreign head of state is really, it's a matter of international politics, and we're not here to talk about politics, but immigration is kind of inherently political. It's based upon treaties, international agreements between countries, and as well as our own internal policy. And I don't know, it's interesting to talk about what they talked about on immigration and how it might affect people out there in our audience.
I mean, obviously, we're going to go through the announcements that everybody have heard about, but we'll go through them and analyze them. But I think you and I were talking about, there was a lot of trying to get close to each other, but everybody's guarded because of who the U.S. is and who India is, and the history and the geographical challenges the countries have. It's a difficult. They are going to move closer in inches, not in feet, with time. So it's going to be a slow process.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the U.S. is the second biggest economy.
The U.S. is the biggest economy.
I thought it flipped back with China. Now
we still are the biggest economy. China is the second biggest.
And whereas India is a lot like the United States in many ways. It's a democracy. It's and like any sort of it wants to be well liked across the planet, and it wants to achieve things internally. And I think a lot of the overall goals of the countries are the same, but the question is do they meet? Does that require and does that demand cooperation from those two countries to achieve their individual goals?
There is a tremendous positive for the world's largest democracy to ally with the world's largest economy. And that is really the foundation of the visit of Prime Minister to the U.S. Clearly, the U.S. had an intense interest in becoming closer to India, and India has a lot of need for the U.S. economic power to help it really move from where they at. They are the 5th largest economy, yet they are the most populous country in the world. So there is some catching up for them to do.
Yeah.
And what other country in the world that can help them achieve that other than the U.S.?
Yeah.
So there's a lot of interest between them. Can this spill over immigration, Brian?
Well, we're going to look at this from an immigration perspective. You know, for what's to talk about. After part of the big state visit from Prime Minister Modi was that there was a release of a joint statement from the U.S. and India about all the things they talked about, right? And they talked about a lot of things, and we're going to sort of go over them and sort of talk about how they might touch upon immigration things, because you know, I don't know what your Google Alerts feed is like. When I hear, you know, Indian immigration pop up, that's, you know, what comes up for me. And believe me, there's plenty of things in here that aren't about immigration. There's things about, you know, healthcare, national defense, cooperation, space collaboration, technology, all sorts of interesting things. But there's a fair amount of immigration signaling, some interesting words in there I thought would be fun to talk about.
Yeah. So obviously the announcement, the first announcement that is not new, it's not new, is that the State Department is going to administer H-1B stamping and L visa stamping in the U.S.
Yeah.
Okay, that is something that was announced before, but the difference, Brian, is that now it says beginning in 2023.
Yeah, they said I think it didn't say last time. They said there would be a pilot program. Yeah, so
in beginning in 2023 this year.
Yeah.
So
we're halfway done 2023.
Yeah, but before there was no in 2023.
Okay, I didn't look into that detail. Okay.
Yeah, with the visit it says it will commence in 2023.
Yeah. That is what it's, so yeah, and I'm going to put it on the screen. There's a little bit of a blurb about this. If you guys want to read what the entire summary of the visit was, look for the joint statement from U.S. and India. It appears on whitehouse.gov, as in the website of the White House.
Yeah.
So here it is on movement of people. The leaders welcomed an announcement by the U.S. Department of State that would launch a pilot to adjudicate domestic renewals of certain petition-based and temporary work visas later this year, including for Indian nationals. With the intent to implement this for an expanded pool of H-1B and L visa holders in 2024, eventually broadening the program to include other eligible categories.
Right.
Now, you know, one would hope that as soon as you see an announcement like this, you would see some details, because this was announced initially, I think it was back in February, and we didn't hear it's been crickets since then. And of course, as soon as I read this, I said, maybe there's some sort of joint, you know, press release from the Department of State saying what they're going to do. Executive summary is we have little to no details about what's coming next for this program.
But I want to, before we go into, I mean, what I believe, I believe that this is something that is going to happen this year for sure. I'm just telling you what I believe.
I will tell you what I believe when you're done telling me what you believe.
Yeah, because Prime Minister Modi went on and spoke to a group of
I don't remember
Indian nationalists who are business owners, and repeated that himself. Now, I can tell you that he would not say that unless he received assurances. He is by the way, he is one of the most, in my opinion, one of the most charming, charismatic, and intelligent leaders of India that India have had, probably one of the most popular in the last 50 years. He is not going to go out and say something like this unless he has received clear assurances it will be done this year.
You know, and if we're talking about the general issue of, you know, countries coming together, I guess the U.S. government, let alone the president, doesn't want to make a foreign leader look like a liar, essentially. So sure, I expect them to accomplish this in 2023.
Yes.
But you know, the detail is it's supposed to be a pilot program beginning in 2023. And I did it when I was digging around online, and there's a quote, a legit quote from by way of Reuters, the news service, from a Department of State spokesperson says, the pilot would begin with a small number of cases with the intention to scale the initiative over the following 1 to 2 years, a spokesperson said, while declining to define small.
So when did that come out?
That was around this from the last week. So
last week.
Yeah.
Is it before or after?
I think it's from around the same time. I'm sorry, I don't have the exact date of that.
Okay. Well, I will accept reconciling both of them into that it will begin this year, but it will not be very large.
Yeah. Yeah. So,
but I mean, I'm assuming small is going to be maybe 1,000 or something to 2,000. I mean, a small number.
Yeah, I mean, the thing that
it's not going to be 500. It'll be ridiculous. It'll be a joke.
The thing that I question is what office of the Department of State is going to do this, and because I like to think, you know, that, you know, future programs are based out of, you know, current capacity.
The
right?
same office that did it 20 years ago, Brian. They did it all the time. It was not a big deal. It was done all the time. This is not new.
Well, what happened to those people, Sam? The office, they're not just sitting there growing cobwebs on themselves, Sam. They've been doing something. Those people have been reassigned, you know?
Yeah, but that office was there, recreating it.
I guess...
It's like the wheel. You've used the wheel before, you use it again. It's not like you're going to invent it one more time.
I think you might have to, so we'll see what they see, and we think something's coming in 2023, but I think you might have to reinvent the wheel, Sam. That's 20 years ago. It's just in terms of like the evolving nature of our visa applications.
Fine.
About 10 years ago, all of our visa applications went online. Remember paper DS 159s?
Sure.
I do.
Yeah, we'll reinvent the wheel again.
All right.
He said in the United States itself, and in 2023.
I believe it's happening,
Okay.
but you know,
I agree and I accept your premise that the improvements are in inches.
yeah, I am just so skeptical of the U.S. government's ability to get things done fast on immigration, and I'm kind of more faithful in the Department of State versus say USCIS, but
I wouldn't be surprised because both countries, both leaders want to get closer to each other, but I think each one wants the first one to do something. So the U.S. did a couple things. I don't know what promises or adjustments or anything that India has made, nothing so far that I can see that the U.S. government is looking for. But those are huge for India, and India usually is a very independent, Modi is a very independent person, and the stakes for them is very high. So they have to be very careful when they do any adjustments. I mean, clearly they have China border and also the economic need for the country to purchase oil from Russia. There's a lot of dynamics for India that is very difficult for India.
yeah.
In trying to kind of change. The realities are more set, and that's where the challenge is. And can that translate into increasing the 7% or limitation or doing something?
Well, sure. Let's not bury the lead on that front. I mean, you want to talk about the 7%? You know, I won't.
Yeah.
Nothing came up about that. There's not a thing in there. They talk about some immigration matters and the backlog, the massive, you know, amount of how many people are waiting for a green card in the United States. It's I haven't seen the numbers for a while, but it's hundreds of thousands. Folks from India in a backlog, and you know, nothing on the official record of the visit. There's
no discussions. Yeah. I mean, here the reality. I mean, India is the second, has the second largest number of immigrants to the U.S. after Mexico. Only second to Mexico. Not even China has a number, although close. China is a close third. And then when you look at the employment immigration, India has the largest backlog. What that tells you, it tells you that the supply of talent and the badly needed talent is undoubtedly is from India.
Yeah.
And that is a big deal for the U.S.
Yeah, and But why doesn't it come up in this?
That's a great mystery, right? So I guess the visit. I mean, because they're not coming here to talk about immigration.
Well, yeah.
Immigration is the least important topic.
We have immigration blinders on because we're a bunch of immigration attorneys, and I guess the practical matter is I'll answer my own question and I'll say, well, that's a matter for the U.S. Congress. President Biden cannot change that. Then again, in terms of fixing that backlog, he could change the way he counts them.
Technology is more important. Cooperation of technology. Modi not only, he went and he visited Elon Musk. He went to Microsoft. He went and talked to Google. He talked to all those big guys because obviously a lot of them are setting up shop in India on a massive level, and it's a big deal for the companies and big deal for
domestic politics
for India. So that's huge. So that's why he's coming. Also, defense cooperation. The U.S. wants to sell weapons to India. And they want to draw them away from
all these things like technology.
And then immigration becomes the smallest thing. Immigration is the least important thing on the agenda. For us, is the biggest thing. There's no crisis for the president. All these people stuck on H-1Bs, they're showing up every day and they're working, unfortunately, and the jobs are getting done, right?
Yeah.
And money is flowing from these people to India. That makes Modi happy.
Yeah.
Nobody is saying, we're not sending money to India because Modi is not putting pressure. So there is no crisis at their level on immigration.
Yeah. Maintain the status quo.
And then we just get a little bit of crumbs. You want to go through what they agreed to. They've agreed to, obviously, number one is the H-1B visa stamping program.
Hey, we're all high five for everybody.
Visa stamping. And then we're going to open 2 consulates.
Yeah, we have new U.S. consulates in Bangalore and
Ahmedabad.
I
think so.
Yeah.
I think so. So, but there's no timeline.
Yeah.
No timeline.
We've got another Indian consulate in Seattle and 2 new consulates in locations to be chosen in the future. Now, again, I'm thinking from the immigration perspective. They're not okay. Let's talk about the 2 new U.S. consulates in India. That's good. Fixes it well in the future. I believe they're going to happen. It came out of then again. Locations of consulates. That's a matter of the executive office.
One to the south, one in the south, and the other one on the western area.
I guess I was going to say I hope they do it soon because there's a presidential election coming up. This is the purview of the executive branch, and if they don't do it soon, they don't do it. Yeah. I guess is the point I would. So there's certain things in here, Sam. Certain interesting phrases that just, like I said, I fully admit that I have immigration blinders on. I think about immigration in everything I see.
Too.
So there's some interesting things that I wanted to just sort of read off here. These are probably only interesting to me, but allows me to talk about other immigration things that maybe Indian folks don't get, or in the context of India, you don't get to hear about. So there's a lot about trade in here, and I'm just going to read some highlights from these paragraphs. The leaders welcomed the launch of interagency-led strategic trade dialogue in June 2023 and directed both sides to undertake regular efforts to address export controls and explore ways of enhancing high-technology commerce, facilitate technology transfer between the 2 countries, right? And looking to further enhance the bilateral trade relationship by addressing trade concerns and identifying further areas of engagement. Now, as an immigration attorney, Sam, I start hearing about trade. I start thinking about E-2 visas, which has kind of been on our sore spot, at least mine personally, for the last, decade plus of me being an immigration attorney, which is a sort of visa that is not available to folks from India because they're based upon a treaty. And even though there's nothing here saying, hey, let's get one of those treaties of commerce and navigation around, I'd see there's lots of talk in here about increased trade between countries and resolving previous trade disputes, and I think of that as something that points to further trade and maybe points in the direction of one of those nice E-2 treaties of navigation and commerce between the United States and India. It's kind of on my wish list, right?
Well, let's put the caveat that that's
Brian's personal wish list. Nothing to say it's coming.
Pure speculation.
Pure speculation. Brian's personal wish list because I'm an immigration attorney and I like these visas.
Yes.
Now, why do I think it's not crazy? There's literally like 80 countries plus with which U.S. has an E2 E2 visa availability, and all it takes is the signing of a proper kind of trade treaty. And I guess I see if you have increased relations, increased trade, positive relationship between the United States and India, that's something which I would kind of be hopeful for, because they're cool visas. They allow people to come from country A to start a new business and stay in the country for the duration of that, to manage that business, and that's cool stuff in my book. So I'm always in favor of more trade tends to lead to more visas.
So E2 visa, for those who are not familiar with it, is a lot of countries, there's about maybe 30 countries, I don't have the exact count. Most European countries, 2 or 3 countries in the Middle East, and Japan, Australia, I'm sure they have it. Where by investing in not set amount of money, but approximately $100,000, could be less, in a business in the U.S., you can be here in the United States perpetually.
Yeah.
Perpetually meaning no green card, but you can be here in the United States. I've had clients be in the United States for 20 years on e-visas, have their own business, large businesses, they run it. They're just free to stay here as long as they run their own business. That's the E2 visa, which is a fantastic visa, and there's no numerical limitation on the E2 visas.
Yeah, I mean, you're talking about making like businesses, big businesses like E2 visas, because you can move critical members of your workforce to the United States, and honestly, entrepreneurs like them as well, because you can bring yourself just basically say, hey, I'm making an investment in the United States, and convince the U.S. consulate to give you a visa. And
the idea that, I'm sorry, I have to go back and hit it again because it drives me crazy. Everybody that wants to get stamping, flies out, goes to one of the 5, everybody who's from India wants to get stamping, flies out to India, right? And gets stamping in one of the 5 consulates.
Yep.
Okay? Going through, and a tremendous expense, time waste, impact on U.S. businesses, loss of efficiency, loss of their time, they want to spend 3 weeks with the family, have to spend 3 days traveling to the consulate and back, and stress and denial, and it's the same manpower from the State Department.
Yeah,
they're doing it over there. So to tell me that that's reinventing the wheel, just grab 3 guys from every consulate, from the 5 consulates, grab 2 guys, put them here in the U.S., create a new office, let them do exactly what they're doing over there, and let them process these visas without people leaving the country.
Yeah, and I can only imagine it's probably a heck of a lot easier to hire people for the Department of State, in the United States, where there's, conveniently a whole lot of Americans, Yeah.
So it's a no-brainer. So, but would you conclude that the net impact of Prime Minister Modi's visit to the United States, unlike what you've been reading in the media, has been really not very impactful?
Not incredibly impactful, though. But as a guy who focuses on immigration and knowing that a lot of immigration comes from India, I like to see the headlines about it. I like to hear about the head of state coming to the United States for a visit. So
and then you want to point to something here that's very interesting that you're pointing out to you according to your theory, which I like a lot. Go ahead and put it on the screen.
Well, no.
This is important.
No, I was going to do this. The totalization agreement.
Yeah.
You want me to do the?
No, the word agreement to me means a treaty, right?
Well, yeah. Okay, so let's talk about this. So I'm going to put it up on the screen here, and this is something that's they say they're working on.
Yeah.
So there it is. The leaders recognize the role of Social Security totalization agreement in protecting the interests of cross-border workers, and reaffirm the intent to continue ongoing discussions concerning the elements required in both countries to enter into a bilateral Social Security totalization agreement.
So that's not a treaty of commerce and cooperation.
No. But it's good. It's good cooperation between the countries, and I get to remind people of what a Social Security totalization agreement is. So, executive summary is that in the United States we have Social Security taxes, and I don't know nothing of Indian internal politics and social safety net, but apparently they have some sort of similar system. And essentially, a totalization agreement, if people are required to pay taxes in both countries, it can basically avoid that by basically saying we're going to accept, payment in one as good for the other. And essentially, it might allow somebody to qualify for Social Security benefits in the United States, you have to have a certain amount of time put into the system. It may allow you to use your time years contributed to one system and combine them with another system in order to get a benefit out of one or both systems. So,
and that would be wonderful.
Yeah, that's good stuff in my book. But I'm apparently being the optimistic guy for this one, and you're being the skeptical guy, as you should. I can't help but go back and look at the language and read it through a different light, even though I highlighted this and said bilateral. So, the leaders continue to recognize their role in protecting the interests of cross-border workers and reaffirm the intent to continue ongoing discussions. I guess when I hear about intent to continue ongoing discussions, I say to myself, maybe don't consider that, don't count on that one coming particularly soon. Yeah.
So Biden was extremely welcoming to the Prime Minister, and the Prime Minister was extremely charming. Being here, and he's connected.
The head of state should be.
Oh yeah, he definitely has a special charisma, and I love watching him talk and connect with people. He's very special. I understand that, but I think what happened is this is just a feeling out meeting, and the pressure when head of states meet, the pressure is on them to come out with results. Mm-hmm. So my people are talking to your people to come out with a list of things to make everybody feel that we've done something positive.
I'm talking about the statement, and I'm not talking about like the literal, probably months of chatting at the lower levels happening between diplomats.
Obviously the Prime Minister and the President are not talking, but his people he's talking and say, we got to come out with a list. We got to come out address this list. I'm getting pressure from this. I'm getting pressure, so they come out with a list of things. Okay, and it started with the compelling circumstances EAD probably. And we're going to talk about that here if we have a moment.
Yeah.
The compelling circumstances EAD and the consulate stamping and all these things. Okay, these are pre-agreed upon releases.
Yeah, they didn't just hammer this out. They
didn't go in and talk about any of that stuff.
Hey man, let's have a beer and let's
Oh well, let's do. What about the H-1B? My people are not happy with the H-1B. Well, let me create a consulate. That's never has a conversation. These are pre-decided things that they just release timely to make everybody happy.
Yeah. So let's talk about the compelling circumstances EAD. So last week, check our last week's video. We talked about USCIS changing their policy and really saying that we would give one of these compelling circumstances EADs in. Here's the scenario: if somebody's been in the United States for a long time. Has school-age children and owns a home in the United States. Hey, that would be totally compelling circumstances for us, and you wouldn't even need to meet all three of those requirements necessarily to establish compelling circumstances.
And it was by way of example, not necessarily. These are not the elements of the compelling, but that's an example they gave.
Yeah, conveniently right before the visit, and the bottom line is. Who are people who have visa backlogs? It's people from India and China, and India, by having the far biggest backlog, those are the people from India are far more likely to benefit from this. But funnily enough, it wasn't on the statement, the 50-paragraph, joint statement from the U.S. and India. So I guess it points to your. It's background conversation, things that are agreed upon. Maybe it wasn't agreed upon. Maybe it's just a nice welcome mat. I don't know, Sam.
I can give you 25 reasons why they would not put that on the list.
Yeah.
But I would not go through with everybody's time to do it because it has to do with, number one, not only for Indians.
Yeah.
Okay. And number two, it's about people's loss of job.
Yeah.
So there's a negative aspect of it, a little bit.
Yeah.
So there is not. It's not one thing that. A prime minister will say, well, if you lose your job here, they're going to keep you. If I'm a good politician, I would say, okay, you can announce this. Don't associate me with that one. People can connect the dots. I'm just. It's my theory. Be that as it may, let's go through the compelling circumstances. A lot of question on compelling circumstances EAD.
Yeah, we had a
that
pretty
we
big response to our
Yeah.
last week. And
So let's answer those questions before we jump in and answer people's questions,
Yeah.
because people have questions. So let's jump in and take care of that.
so one of the reasons why I want to, talk about the compelling circumstances EAD a little bit more is because, I was reading about it, what the news was saying about it, and I kept on seeing the headline of, U.S. changes norms on green card issuance prior to Prime Minister Modi's visit. That's not what it does at all.
Correct.
So
I agree with you.
Yeah.
So a lot of misinformation.
Yeah. So question number one: does compelling circumstances EAD give you a path to a green card?
No.
No, just not. Your same old path to a green card or your same old path to a green card. It's getting approved I-140 or some other sort of immigrant petition.
Yeah.
Can anyone apply for it? No. You have to. The primary applicant has to be somebody on E3, H-1B, H-1B1, O1, or L1. Emphasizing the point that it's for other people as well. I mean, E3s are only available for Australians, for example.
Does it give you a special status? No.
No. It's the opposite of status. It is, you go for that compelling circumstances EAD because
You're stuck.
yeah, you can't. It would be really, really bad for you to be forced to leave the United States. We're sympathetic, so we'll give you this so you can work, and we won't call you unlawfully present.
Do you get an automatic EAD? No. You have to wait until it's approved.
Yeah.
How long does it take for it to be approved? Months.
Yeah. Let me see. Can it stop my child from aging out? No. The definition of a child under immigration law remains the same, and
The aging out rules are not impacted by the compelling circumstances.
yeah, I mean, your child would be, dependents are eligible for it, but it doesn't get, the way I read the policy, and I went ahead and, read the underlying law, it's basically, oh yeah, your family members, your spouse and child are eligible for it, but as long as they're your spouse and child and under U.S. immigration law, you're no longer a child, if you get married or reach the age of 21,
Can I apply for it if I am out of status and outside the grace period?
No, you have to be in status. Yeah.
Or within the grace period. So
Yeah.
it's very limited.
I mean, yeah. So I guess I have I don't know, an irritation that it doesn't change. Compelling circumstances EAD does not change the green card norms.
It doesn't help everybody, and it's
Yeah.
very limited. They open it up. It's a law that exists since
I would
2017.
rather have it than not have it. But yeah.
So that's compelling circumstances, guys, to kind of give you an idea. So let's go in and take questions when we come back. All right, guys, this is the time when we will take your questions. Just remember, the questions we answer is based on few words you give us through the World Wide Web, virtually. We do not know your background. We do not know enough about the case for you to make a decision on your immigration case without consulting with an attorney. So we highly recommend that you consult an attorney of your choice before you make a decision on your case. And there's no attorney-client relationship established because we're communicating virtually through the World Wide Web. However, we are pleased to answer your questions, and we welcome them, and anything on immigration law that you want to ask, we will happy to give it a stab and answer it. Without further delay.
Keeps us sharp and on our toes for sure.
Without further delay, let's take the first question from Sky Limit.
Yes, sir. So, what happened to USCIS' claim of improving processing time by the end of fiscal year 2023? It doesn't seem possible unless they have a magic wand, because they're not even close to what they had projected. So, I like to give USCIS their due when they are due it, and they did have a big old hiring push. Ask me how I know. Well, one, because they announced it. Two, you and I were attending green card interviews late last year, and I noticed a distinct uptick in the number of new officers that were being, trained when I was going just for USCIS green card interviews. I remember, I forget what city I was in because I went to a lot of them last fall, but I was in a room where there were literally 4 officers there, one being the officer doing the interview, and another 3 in there with them doing training. So I do believe that at least in the local field offices, I have seen an uptick in their presence of officers, and we know the hiring is there. The processing times, though, I can't say I see them getting any better, and that's my personal take on it.
No, I don't see it improving, honestly. And honestly, the problem they have is that they messed up the progress status on cases. 80% of the cases are being processed within 15 months. They just messed it up. Now there's no straight talk.
Yeah.
And when you lose the straight talk, then the trust is damaged. And honestly, I don't trust anything they even. I don't understand this 80%. I don't understand how you can even calculate.
Well, I want to clarify. So if anybody's ever been to the USCIS website and you go to check processing times, it used to be, you put in your type of case you have and they tell us, generally how long it takes. Now on the website it says, if you put in, advanced parole with the National Benefit Center, it'll say we get to 80% of cases in X amount of months. And you're right, it's wishy-washy, fuzzy information. And, sky limit here, I wonder, how would I check on USCIS's, if they're meeting their standards? I find it USCIS has a pretty good statistics page, and you guys will know because I sometimes mine those statistics for the data we present here. But in terms of figuring out how it means about how they're processing cases, I don't think it could be used for that part. But what I know I'll see sometime sooner or later, some sort of report from USCIS saying how they've done better, how they've reduced processing times, because I expect that there's, as there's reports and press releases about how they're going to do better, there's usually some sort of, here's what we've accomplished. And I don't know if I trust those.
You know when I would trust them?
Yeah.
If they publish, if they want to do this 80% game,
yeah.
Okay, I'll take the game. But you need to publish also the average processing time of the remaining 20%.
Yeah.
So you should publish what's 80% average processing time for 80% of the cases. What's the average processing time for the remaining 20% of the cases?
I do want to hear the best case scenario and the worst case scenario.
Yeah.
And I want to scream at them about both of them. I want to say, how the heck did so and so get his I-485 approved in 2 months? Who did he know? And what did this poor person, employment-based? I want to see. Well, whose employment-based green card takes that long? Yeah. And obviously there's some cases like backlogs, but
you know that the average processing time is a lot worse than published. Why? Because they limited it to the top 80% only.
Yeah.
So once you include the other 20% that they're hiding from you,
yeah.
you know that the processing time is worse.
Yeah, we're getting off the bad part of the average. Yeah.
So next month they may come back and say, oh, we're changing it. We're going to give you the processing time for the top 70% of the cases. And then next time they're going to give you the processing time for the top 60% of the cases. What about the rest of them?
What frustrates me, and I'll tell you a scenario, I was looking into an I-824 recently, I think it was, and somebody asked me, Brian, can you tell me how much longer this is going to take? And I said, well, good news, on so sometime earlier this month, on the 23rd of this month, you'll be able to put in an inquiry, right? And on the 23rd of this month, I came back to put in an inquiry, and then it said, on the 23rd of July, you'll be able to put an inquiry. The slipping of those dates is something that drives me. I
think they need a lawsuit on that one.
I mean, I don't think about lawsuits. I think all the time though about FOIA requests. But I know how they deal with FOIAs. The FOIAs that they don't want to answer.
You have to litigate FOIAs.
Yeah, exactly. They don't want to answer those FOIAs. Let's keep moving here. With MC Ramachandra Reddy. Oops, I think I may have skipped one. I'm sorry. From Rajesh Sigdel. How many months of forward movement do you think the EB2 rest of the world will move in the coming October visa bulletin when the new fiscal year starts? Thank you so much. Well, thank you for the question, Rajesh. But Sam has a smile on his face because I think we have to retire from predicting the visa bulletin because the visa bulletin goes everywhere with seeming lacking of logic. I would say that in the month of October, EB2 rest of the world, Sam. I have visa bulletin copies here. I know the visa EB2 rest of the world is not.
Insist I'll grab my copy.
Yes, I'm sorry. I did not grab yours for you.
Oh, no problem.
I think I will talk about where the EB2 rest of the world is and see whether I want to comment on it. So this is July 2023. It's at 15th of February 2022, and meaning it's already a year and a half ish off.
That's shocking to me.
Well, they said, as they've been saying, they said increased demand from the rest of the world, which we've been through several times, that we don't really believe in too much. Maybe a little bit more, but not enough, not that much.
All what I can say is I cannot predict. I cannot predict what's going to happen. However, the moment you become current, the day you become current, that month you need to file your case. I'm just having flashback from this wonderful family that came to me December of 2022, 6 months ago. They came to me in November.
Yeah.
Okay, November of 2022. Rest of the world cases, and I told them, and their cases was ready to be filed, and I told them, you got to file your case before the end of the month because nobody can predict the visa bulletin. We're taking a vacation, and we're going to this country, we're going to Dubai, we're going to this country, and and did not file, retrogressed now a year. I mean, it just they had a window. That window is gone.
Yeah.
And they had on a limited visa. Their visa is running out. Although they have other option potentially, but that they could have been on one side of the deal. Now they are on the other side of the deal. But be that as it may, I don't think things are going to move that quick. I mean, a year and a half, that's worth of a lot of visas.
It all depends upon demand, Sam. You know.
Yeah, Brian, but that's a lot of visas for the rest of the world. I mean,
the rest of the world gets a lot of visas.
Yeah, and that's so backed up.
Yeah. Well.
But they do get a lot of visas.
Yeah, so we're already we're dangerously close to July right now, and in September we'll have the October visa bulletin. It means we're going to be seeing it soon, Sam.
This visa bulletin is getting so bad. We have announced last 2 sessions ago that the India backlog is the longest in history for EB3.
Yeah, we had a sheet that shows where the history is. It's bad.
The longest in history for EB3 right now, January 1st, 2009. What you've done here, and for Prime Minister Modi and our fancy president, not to talk about this. Okay, or his people are not talking to the other people about this backlog is shocking to me. Well, this never came up.
I'm going to think about it again for a second. Like, maybe a foreign head of state doesn't take it as their position to comment on, internal U.S. permanent immigration policy. But, I can't help but think that, came up, President Biden, you can just change the way they count that. Count the primaries, don't count the families. Be a big.
Yeah, well, if he's running again and gets elected again, he might be able to pull something like this. I mean, election is coming up. They're not going to do anything crazy. But if he gets elected again and stays alive, is a big debate. I mean, he's too old. I mean, there's a big issue here. Maybe he can pull something like this and say the heck with everybody. I mean, he's pulled all kind of crazy stuff in the first term.
He's gotten some stuff, despite the harsh political climate that he lives in, he's gotten more done than I would have expected him to.
He's done radical things, put it that way.
Yeah.
So maybe something like this can be done. Let's take the next question.
Yeah. Bing.
Mr. Reddy, do you still think there is a good chance for a second H-1B lottery this year? If yes, would they remove the fraudulent registrations?
Well,
go ahead.
Well, I just want to comment on the second part. It's the fraudulent registrations are self-removing. If people choose not to file those cases, the cases don't get filed, and then after this coming Friday, the last day that they will accept H-1B cases, USCIS says, well, I guess we know those cases weren't filed, and they can start basically tabulating, do we have enough cases here
to meet the regulatory number?
Yeah.
So, but let's talk the first part. Do you think there's going to be a second lottery? I'd say so.
I'd say that I am a heck of a lot more optimistic than I was, when I saw the initial registration numbers of, 400 some thousand.
I don't think it's going to be a big number, though.
Yeah, I mean,
It's going to be some, but not a big number.
yeah, you're right.
That's my feeling.
The second round was never like, whoa, we have tons of new cases. Even in past years where I think it was done pretty conservatively. So yeah, I think I agree with you on that front.
Yeah.
From Rithika Reddy. Hi, Brian and Sam. Thank you for doing these sessions. Can spouse H4 EAD or Green Card EAD open up an LLC business? If so, what immigration challenges do you need to be aware of? The primary is on is on H1 visa and also has a Green Card EAD.
Okay, so very simply, I'm going to give you the simple answer and then we'll elaborate.
Yeah.
Absolutely, yes. You can definitely open a limited liability company. I don't see any complications. The thing that can become complicated kind of on a projection basis is if your EAD expires, and obviously we all know how wonderful the government is in renewing them, how timely they are. Sarcasm there. That puts you in a pickle because now you are
got your big boom in business, and then
and a lot of money on the line.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden you can't work. So that would be the only concern. If you time it correctly and have contingency plans, speaking with your attorney, for example, having a U.S. citizen employee that you can completely hands off until the EAD comes in and then get re-engaged, that can be probably helpful. That would be the only thing I would see, Brian, of a downside.
Yeah, the bottom line is, I'll state it differently, is the Green Card EAD or the H4 EAD, they don't come with limitations. You can be the janitor and you can be the CEO, and you can be both of them at the same time if you would like. That's really kind of it.
You don't have to be the janitor. He's just being descriptive.
I'm being very Brian, yeah. But I would say to comment on what you're saying about the ability of USCIS to renew EADs, I agree it's a terrible problem. But the Green Card EADs, they do have better automatic extension rules. But the problem being is to take advantage of them, you have to use the Green Card EAD, which means leaving behind your H4 status. But that's a decision you can make.
I might add, if you have H4 EAD and Green Card EAD, you can renew the Green Card EAD and not use it. Use the H4 EAD.
Yeah.
Continue to renew that until it runs out.
Yeah, until the H4 EAD lets you down.
Straddle them so you can have one all the time. But let's take a question from Praveen. Will EB2 India date move to January 2013 in the new fiscal year?
That's,
I have to most respectfully not see it, because right now India EB2 final action date is January 1st, 2011.
Yeah.
And that's a long time between that and January 2013, 24 months.
Yeah, I think if we are working our way towards a spot where the visa bulletin, normalizes to pre-pandemic, places, typically, historically, we would see it move in, weeks, like 7 days a month, if we're lucky, And big new visa availability in October, so that's when you're likely to see bigger movements. Hence why we saw our craziness of October 2020. But simple answer is, I agree with Sam.
Not only that, but also just remember the big movements that we've had is when there was a overflow from the family base into the employment base, so they had to apply them on day one. To the employment, whereas the 7%, which is about 4,000 or whatever the number is, they have to distribute them quarterly to make sure that they're doing them correctly. But we've also seen them overusing them during the year, so I don't see a movement of 2 years, unfortunately.
Yeah. Let's see what we got next from Harsha.
Harsha, hi Sam and Brian. One of two. I received my EAD Advanced Parole Renewal Combo Card earlier this month. They're still issuing them, combo?
He received an EAD AP card. Yeah, I sort of glazed over that, but yeah, for the last...
When my case was processing, I was tracking it online and showing fingerprint applied.
Yeah, and there's a part 2 way down here.
I received a card in place of fingerprint showing no image available. It happened with both me and my wife. Any impact if I use this of employment or travel? Already submitted SR.
You know, I have seen tons and tons and tons of, you know, EADs, combined EAD APs. My problem is I honestly can't, I don't spend much time focusing in on that fingerprint portion of it, and I can't tell you whether I've ever seen that before, you know? I just can't think.
The travel document is concerning, but I would probably, I would make an appointment with customs.
Yeah.
And show it to them and say, I don't want to leave the country and come back and for it not to be used, see what they say.
Yeah, that's...
They may look at you like you're crazy, wasting my time with a stupid question, and it may not be a conclusive answer.
You know, I find that the customs is surprisingly friendly when you call or ask them a question, and as helpful as they can reasonably be is my experience.
Completely different when they're processing people.
Yeah.
They're not friendly.
Yeah. I guess it's a special duty to talk to those who are already in the United States, and those are the nicest, friendliest people that you get. But I always get frank and what I believe to be honest and thoughtful responses when I have to call customs to talk about something of interest of unique in nature.
Yeah.
So going to keep it going. Oh, we skipped a couple here because there's a part 2.
Yes.
Bing. So, Good Time Forever, that's a good name.
I like it.
After a person gets employment-based green card, how long is it valid for, and what will be the process to renew it? Any steps? A question which I don't think we've really seen in this venue before.
Absolutely.
I love it.
Yep.
A straightforward one, though. So, I'll do it, I guess. You get a 10-year. When you get an employment-based green card, with the exception of, say, EB-5, for example, where you get a conditional one, you should get a green card that lasts you 10 years. And if by chance, after 10 years, you've not, say, chosen to become a U.S. citizen, which you would be eligible to apply for just before 5 years, you can file to renew it. There's a form for that.
It's very simple, straightforward.
Yeah.
It's valid. It's valid indefinitely. I like you to answer the question so I can pick on it.
Yeah, it's very easy to
so I can
to when you spend the time getting to think about your answer. But you're entirely right. That's why I was clapping. But if you want to just stomp me out and sound like a smart guy, go ahead because you are.
So it's valid indefinitely, and the renewal really is to update the picture.
Yeah, I call it evidence of your permanent residence.
So even if you leave the country on an expired green card, you can come back to the U.S. I don't recommend that you do that.
No, you're not going to have a fun time with those friendly. You're not going to meet the friendly customs folks for that.
Yeah, but they can get over it. I had a guy one time. So a long time ago, 30 plus years ago, the green card never had an expiration date on it.
Yeah.
So it's an old card.
We occasionally see them still.
Laminated.
Yeah.
Those cards all expired.
Yeah, they're by some sort of regulation, but I still see them on occasion.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. They're all expired. And the guy comes to me and he said, I want to apply for citizenship. And I said, okay, give me your green card. And he handed me one of those green cards, which is expired like 10 years ago. And I said, this green card expired 10 years ago. He said, oh, I didn't know that. I said, have you left the country? He said, oh, yeah, he's Italian. I go to Italy every Italy every week. I go to Italy every day. I show my green card, they let me back in. Nobody cares. So no problem on the green card. The green card is indefinitely valid for as long as you're maintaining your residency in the United States permanently. But the renewal is for the picture, obviously, and for security reasons. We'll take the next one.
So based upon these questions, I can't help but think that Good Time Forever here is just maybe about to get a green card in the mail. And if that's the case, well, good for you. So after a person gets employment-based green card, are there any things that you suggest? Have a little party?
Well, have a little party. Well, absolutely. And come and announce it here so we can give you a clap. We have a clap here.
Clap button.
But we'll hold it yet, so we don't want to jinx him. So you have to read about the preservance of your permanent residency. So you can read about that. If you're a client of ours, we will send you information about the preservance of your green card, what you need to understand and know. Bottom line is, America, USA has to be your home.
Whoa, Sam Shihab, you're giving this smart answer, and I'm here thinking of all the nuances of it. You know, you just said that your green card lasts forever. It doesn't expire, but you can give up your permanent residence, right? By not even just handing back the green card, you can just do the wrong thing to give up your permanent residence, right, Sam?
Absolutely.
Right?
Both are not inconsistent. Both are not inconsistent, Brian.
Okay, well, I never said it. Okay, fair. Well, you're okay.
Yeah.
All right.
All right, so so that's what my answer. So let's take the next one here, trying to get as many before it hits 7 o'clock.
Yeah.
Brian, take that one so I can pick up.
Dear Sam and Brian, request your opinion on this. EB3 downgrade on 10/2020, interfiled to EB2 6/2022, 485J not approved yet. If I want to change employer, should I request 485J with EB2 or EB3 I-140? An excellent. So this is where I kind of want to repeat that our classic thing here. We're saying in the beginning, you know, your situation is complicated, and you know this might be the sort of thing where you want to talk with somebody about it.
Yeah. So this is something that you need counsel, and you need to have all the details. I mean, you need to know every date, every moment, because you want to give somebody the best answer, because this is critical.
Yeah.
I mean, I would start by saying, if I don't know enough, my starting point is two I-45Js.
Yeah,
I would start with that, but I might be able to give a lot better answer with knowing more.
Yeah, I mean that's something where you really can't. I mean, because the problem is, do you consider this a transfer on an underlying basis or not a transfer on an underlying basis? There's I think you've fundamentally has laid out essentially a shotgun approach where basically.
Choose one and send me back the other.
Exactly. My version of this response is I have a job. I want you to give me a green card in the fastest way possible. I'm eligible in both categories. Here's everything you need to do that. I'll see you when you with a green card.
When you open the file and there's a visa available.
Yeah.
But consult with an attorney, because this is really important stuff.
Giving them as many options to approve your case is what I would typically do here. Yeah. Skipping that one because we already hit it. Anything to keep in mind? Current I-45 case is in case remains pending. This is ST96, who was I think was the one asking about what happens when you get a green card. Anything to keep in mind?
Just hang in there and keep your job.
Yeah. That's.
Yeah, really. I mean, keep your job and keep positive attitude.
Tell users to subscribe and
I love the good time forever.
We don't.
Yeah. Please subscribe and share.
We haven't said that in about a year, but we always get a good viewership, and we do appreciate you guys.
But thank you so much.
Keeps us on our toes. Yeah.
Harry Guru, one of two. Hi Brian, Sam. Thank you so much for all the help. 485 is filed in October 2020. Got EAD advanced parole. Got my 3-year H-1B extension until 2024. Never informed employer about EAD. If I pick a new second job,
Part 2.
Do I need to ask current employer to move to EAD? If I didn't inform, I would be on H-1B with current employer. Second employer might be on I-9 with EAD. Is that a violation of any immigration law? Okay, excellent question. So to simplify everybody, this guy got an H-1B, all right, and then has an EAD, a green card EAD, and would like to get a second job to use the green card EAD. And he has really a two-part question. The first part question is, do I have an obligation to inform the employer of my other job using EAD so they can update the I-9? Number two, can I keep my status both in EAD and H-1B at the same time if I don't inform the employer? That would be a rephrasing of the questions.
It's still a complex question, but I agree it would be a rephrasing of it. Yeah.
So the first part, do you have an obligation to inform the employer when you use your EAD so they can update the I-9? You do have an obligation to inform the employer, but if you don't inform the employer, kind of, sort of, it's not something that it will render you out of status or anything. You are on EAD, it's just the employer is not in compliance.
Yeah, that's what I would emphasize. It's an employer issue really, that you're, I mean, granted, how are they going to know? How's the employer going to know? And that's why you should,
It's a gap, because employer really would not be at fault because he wasn't informed or she wasn't informed. you're not really in violation because you really have an EAD to cover you.
Yeah.
So,
When I
but
think
you have a defective I-9.
Yeah, when I think about all these issues, I say, if somebody always brings this up with me when I'm about to go to an immigration interview, and I think about issues like this, and I say, to all those I-9 questions, red herrings, distractions, do you have an EAD? Are you authorized to work for all these people?
Yes.
I wouldn't worry.
Yeah.
Don't think about it.
Can you keep your EAD working for the second employer and keep your H-1B with the first employer? The answer is no.
Yeah.
You are on EAD automatically the moment you use your EAD with the second employer. Just the first employer does not know that.
Yeah.
You cannot maintain. You can carry the card, but you cannot use it and maintain H-1B at the same time.
Yeah.
Let's take the next one.
So, what are the chances of EB3 India moving to party date March 2012 during October visa bulletins? So, EB3 India is at 1st of January 2009. With sympathy, I say, unfortunately, 1308 Nani, I don't see that that happening. Keep in mind, let's say in an optimistic world where EB1 becomes current for everybody, that means their visas might start rolling down from EB1 to EB2. They're not rolling down to EB3, unfortunately.
Yeah. Next week, we're going to talk about EB5, and it is the only category in which India is current now. The only category in which India is current today is EB5.
Yeah.
The only.
Yeah.
So listen to it because it may help you. Next
Let's skip
topic.
one. Here we are.
Yeah.
Some from Rajini Gupta. I'm at India, got H1 approval. Employer gave only copy of the approval notice. Passport not stamped. If I switch to a new employer, can the old employer revoke the H1? If H1 is revoked, what are my options? So this is something where this is really a fundamental question whether Rajini Gupta has been counted against the H1B cap. And if you go deep and read the rules, as I recall, it reads that you're considered counted against the cap if you've been stamped or if you've gotten a 994. Right, and USCIS has been tried to interpret stamped as actually means stamped and entered the country as well, because I've seen RFEs on that issue, and I think we may have won on that RFE because I don't remember hearing a negative result on it. So that's good, but the bottom line is. Technically speaking, as I read the situation, I don't think somebody here would be considered, Regina here would be considered.
She would not be counted because you're not stamped and you do not have an I-94.
Yeah.
So both gives you opportunities to be counted and to be able to use it. And if the employer withdraws your H-1B, then that number is going to be taken away from you and used for the following year.
Yeah.
H-1B cap.
So I must say, though, sometimes I think that USCIS does not understand what their own policy is.
No, impossible, Brian.
Well, I think there's a reasonable chance that if Regini filed through another employer, U.S. consulate might be willing to wish USCIS consider it cap exempt. But I think they are finally cracking down on that because I've heard murmurings of RFEs on this subject.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
I think it's an inherently risky,
Yes.
premise for sure.
Yes. Censure. At Regini Gupta, how many times you will come and ask the same question? They answered this week ago. You're welcome to answer. Everybody is welcome here, but that's funny.
Yeah.
Pranav, does one have to redo fingerprinting after filing 485 and EB1 if already done with the older EB2 485 filing? So USCIS has been known to use prior fingerprinting and to use the least amount possible. It is really up to their discretion.
Yeah, that's my response is. I don't know.
It's up to their discretion, and there's nothing that you can predict. But they're trying to kind of, cut down their workload that's unnecessary if they can. Why USCIS doesn't publish count for green card issued in 2023? Two reasons. Number one.
You have a list. Have a list. I'm going to have a rambling answer, Sam. I want to hear your nice professional list.
Number one, they're not capable of publishing it. They don't have it. Number two. Whatever they publish is not credible because a lot of it is wrong, and if there's no regulatory requirement to force them to do it, they won't do it.
Yeah, I would say first of all, USCIS doesn't issue all the green cards. Tons of them are issued through the consulate. And whose purview is the number of green cards that are issued? That's Department of State. Yeah, it's, they're the ones who actually, if you go to the Department of State, they publish yearly reports upon the issuance of immigrant visas, and they publish those reports. They just don't republish them until after the fiscal year is closed.
Yes,
Yeah.
and this is something that Prime Minister Modi should have also announced, but he didn't. The question is there a possibility to change advance parole issuance to make it easier for travel while waiting for priority dates to get current? Can he announce that? Everybody would have loved that, and that would have been wonderful.
I'm going to quote the prior Brian of I don't think the foreign heads of state can get that involved in the.
He's already did. He announced the H-1B piece.
Oh yeah, well this is true. All you would have to do is convince the U.S. government to announce it.
This is easy. This would have been a fantastic thing for him to do.
Well,
his people did not hit on the highlights enough.
Well, I mean, changes to advanced parole. Here's the one change you need for advanced parole: get more people processing them so they get approved faster. That's my number one. That's the only change Brian wants with advanced parole right now.
The problem with advanced parole, and we are going to stay a little bit longer and take more questions because I don't want people to be disappointed. The problem with advanced parole is the way they review them. If they change the way they review them, they can save a lot of time. And what they do is they review your entire history to make sure you don't have a prior immigration violations or suspicion of prior immigration violation before they issue it.
Yeah.
They can put a notation.
It's nice in thought.
Because it becomes a nightmare. Okay. Yeah. All what they have to do is say, if you leave the country and re-enter, and you triggered the bar because of your prior immigration violation, it's your responsibility to defend it in the future. Yeah. It's not our responsibility. Approved. And approve it in one day, and you're done. What a waste of resource.
Well, I mean, I would like a different policy. I'd call advanced parole a free pass. It doesn't stop it doesn't correct anything. It's not a new admission, and just give people the advanced parole. Let them travel. But any other grounds that doesn't work. But yeah.
In fairness to everybody, and publishing answer for everybody's comment, Regini comes back and says, "You are mistaken, Censor. I was not in the last
No,
week."
I like Regina's answer. She makes no denial that she's ever asked the question before, but she says definitely not last week. I think maybe
that's a good smart. She's a politician.
Yeah. I was going to say attorney, but a technical answer is one that I like.
Does one have to redo fingerprinting on EB-145 filing if already completed EB-1? I think we've answered that one.
Yeah, the answer is up to the discretion of whoever's reviewing the case.
Brian, take that one.
Yeah. So, hi Sam and Brian from Praveen R. Thanks for all the sessions as they're very helpful. I'm on H-1B and also have a green card EAD with AP. I applied for H-4 extension and it was lost in the mail. She is H-4 EAD extension, okay. Is lost in the mail. She is not working currently, so I guess the impact is minimal. See, find a part 2 for Praveen R. My question is, can she use the green card EAD instead of the H-4 EAD, and will it impact me since I am on H-1 and I'm not yet planning to use the green card EAD?
So let's define use. If you're using it for employment or using it to obtain a driver's license or whatever. So because she says she's not working, I think in the prior.
Not working, yeah.
Yeah, so she's not working. Okay, fine. If you have to work, you stepped out of the H-4 into the EAD, and you cannot step back until you leave the country and come back. But
that's the catch-22 of using that. Yeah.
But if you're using it in the sense of for cashing a check or for getting a driver's license renewal for identification purposes, not for employment purposes, it has no impact. Yeah. On you.
Yeah, and will her use of the green card EAD impact you because you're H-1B and you're maintaining your H-1B? Well, the answer is no. It does not roll uphill, but if you used your green card EAD, it would eliminate your H-1B status and thereby terminate everybody's H-4s.
Impacting the spouse H-4,
exactly, yeah.
And she is on the EAD immediately.
It changes roll downhill, not up.
Uphill, exactly. KK has a question, one of one. Can I apply for EB-1C as I was a manager for my employer for 1 year outside the United States before traveling to the United States in 2014. Right now, I am a senior architect and do not manage people. Well, it's worth looking at. You meet the first blush, but obviously managing people is an issue, but will you be managing people? And if you manage people, you make a better case.
Yeah,
I do not want to discourage you without looking at this specifics.
Yeah, I love it when a manager in the United States is managing people because USCIS, in my opinion, on L1As and EB1Cs, and my opinion, it's everybody's opinion, is a lot easier to understand a manager of people than somebody who would be called a function manager. They have a harder time believing them.
Yeah. And KK has a follow-up. Since green card is for future employment, can I get show that I will have reportees in the future?
So he's imagining like a future employment green card application says, when you put this green card in KK's hand, he's going to have people underneath him, and he'll be in a green card kind of role. Now, in theory, yes. But when I think of L1s and also EB1Cs that are closely related, I think about story and narrative, and I also think seeing is believing. And I think USCIS has a lot easier time believing you're going to be a manager of people when you are one already.
And can I recommend H1 amendment to include manager job duties and then get reportees and then file EB1C? I recommend H1B amendment if the fact changed and you actually are managing people. But I don't recommend it if you're not managing people, because that's really critical. You're not doing an amendment to enhance your EB1C. You're doing an amendment because the circumstances have changed on your H1B such that H1B amendment is warranted, and it happened to also support an EB1C.
We skipped a couple here. I think maybe to no, it's KK.
I think we're on top of it. Yeah.
So we one from Good Time Forever, who's still here. Currently on H1B, and GC is going to come soon. In this case, will I be on H1B or GC once I receive my green card? Short answer is, green card trumps all that. Your status has been adjusted. When you receive your green card, that date it's in your hand, are a permanent resident of the United States.
Yep.
You're done.
Yep.
You are not on H1B anymore, and all that H1B stuff goes away.
Last but not least,
from 1308.
Appreciate answering our questions. EB3 India dates of filing is still August 2012. Is there a chance for allowing us to use dates of filing during initial months of next year?
So
normally.
So I want to underline this because when we talked about the visa bulletin for July, we tend to focus on any final action dates, but it's something I want to highlight if nobody else has noticed, because it is absolutely crazy. So if you look at the final action dates for EB3 of India, the final action date is 1st of January 2009.
Yes.
And the dates for filing are August 1st, 2012.
Yes.
That's huge difference. That's 2
So they want people to file, but they don't want to process people. So it's either dropping the ball, because that gap is, I have not seen it before.
Yeah. Or it's being very, very, very nice and very generous, I guess, with the.
Or there's an expectation that is going to move to that date, and which supports what's his position. So when they're accepting dates, August 2012, to me that means they expect a movement.
You're right. So first of all, I would thank 130890 for bringing this up, because I noticed this, sometime last week when I was staring at the visa bulletin, and it is kind of baffling. And like you said, what's the visa bulletin, the date for filing? There's supposed to be a projection as to where the visa bulletin is going. But I just don't, I guess I'm clearly skeptical, because I don't see how they can get the last guy who ran the visa bulletin, who did all those sessions, we would show parts of them here, Charles Oppenheim, said at some point, the dates for filing are an outlook of 6 to 8 months, or maybe 8 to 10 months, something along those lines. And to move the visa bulletin forward that amount of time in just 8 to 10 months seems unbelievable. But then again, they've moved it back that much. So this is why we keep on predicting the visa bulletin, because it is full of misleading, confusing contradictions. It is absolutely crazy. That's for sure.
With that, we end today's session. Thank you guys for listening to us. I hope it was helpful. Until next week. Next week is going to be EB5. Look at EB5. I think it's worth listening to. It's the only category that's current for India and China and for across the world. The only one.
It's very compelling.
You guys have a wonderful rest of the week.